Okay, I'm just going to jump straight into this, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. Hello, someone's just said hello to me, so can you say hello back if you can hear me? Okay, lovely. So it's your first time watching. Yes, you can hear me. Brilliant. Right, I'm just going to jump straight into this because I don't have a lot of time. So in a recent video, I posted a picture of 3 projects and I asked you which one you wanted me to do first. And the Easter card, the bunny, was the one that came out the favourite. And then the second favourite was the flower. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. Now, let me just explain something. In your machine, if you go into your settings and you go to, let's try and bring you in. Okay, if you go to page 3, you'll see seam allowance. And the seam allowances are in millimetres or inches. Now, the smallest millimetre seam allowance you can add is 3 milli. So then you can go to 5, 7 or 10. Then it jumps to inches. So you've got 1/4 of an inch, which I think is about 6 milli, something like that. 1/2 inch, 5/8, and then back to 3 milli. Okay, so I'm only explaining that because it will make it clear in a minute, hopefully. So I'm going to leave my seam allowance on the smallest that the machine will do, which is 3 milli, and just say OK. And I want to show you that if I drew a flower with a pen and added the smallest seam allowance on, which you've just seen in the machine is 3 milli, that's how the flower would look. But if you draw the flower and then do a direct scan, the minimum seam allowance you can add is 1 milli. So if you look at the difference, there's a massive difference there. This one looks far better than this. This looks too bulky. So this is what I'm going to show you how to do. This is how I made this card. But I coloured these in with Spectrum Noirs. But if you've not got anything to colour them in, I'm going to show you how to get the same effect using pieces of coloured card, which is this one. Hopefully you can see. So I'm going to jump in and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to pattern. I'm going to go into the second section, which is like flowers and presents. And then I'm going to come into this first icon, top left, which has a flower on it. And there's lots of flowers in here that you can use. I chose to use the one on page 2, which is AR-A033. But if you've not got that, and you see it there, you can use any flower. But this is the one I use for the project, so I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to select that, and it comes on the screen at just under 4 inches high and about 3.5 inches wide. Now, I did these at 3/4 of an inch wide, so 0.75. So I'm going to go to the width, take the width down as far as it'll go. It won't go as small as I want it to at this moment. It's gone to 1.18. So I'm going to say OK and OK again and set to put it on my mat. Let me see if I can zoom you in. So now it's on the mat. I'm going to come to this icon in the top left-hand corner, which is the square with the square, triangle and circle. That's kind of like your adjusting icon. I'm going to come into this icon here that's got arrows horizontally and vertically, which is adjusting your height and width. And then on the width, I'm going to take it down to 0.75. which is 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay, and the front of this card has got 6 flowers, so I'm going to say 6, and I'm going to say OK. Then I'm going to say OK again, and I'm going to come to this second icon down on the left that's got triangles, and I'm going to choose the second option, which should put these now in a horizontal line. And I'm going to say OK. Now, just to save a bit of time, I've loaded up my mat with some pieces of coloured card and a piece of white card. And it's the piece of white card that I'm just going to use at this moment in time. So now the mat's loaded, I'm going to do the background scan and say OK. Right, so I can see the piece of white card on the mat, so I'm going to drag these flowers just down onto this piece of white card. And I'm going to zoom in so that I can just adjust them. And I'm going to say OK and OK again. And then I'm going to say draw. So I'm going to take the blade out. I've already loaded a pen into my universal pen holder. I'm going to say draw, and hopefully it's going to draw those flowers on this piece of card. Okay, so they've all drawn, and I'm going to say OK because I've finished drawing, and I'm going to take the pen out, but I'm not going to unload the mat. Now, if I go into the settings and go back to that page 3 where the seam allowance is, and you can see it says 3 milli, and say OK. If I go back and go into this editing icon and go into this adjustment icon and choose to put the seam allowance on, it will put a 3 milli seam allowance on the flower, but it only puts it on 1. So what you'd have to do is choose the red box which selects everything on your mat and say OK, and with them all selected, you go back into the adjustment icon, make them a group, then go into the adjustment icon, and then go into the seam allowance, and it will put a 3 milli seam allowance around all these, which is the first thing I showed you, which I don't want to do because it's too big. So I'm going to come back out of there. I'm just showing you so you'll know the differences. So I'm going to come back out of there and ungroup and just click somewhere on the mat just to deselect all the flowers. And then I'm going to exit out of there and say OK. So what I want to do now, I want to leave these as they are, but I want to go back to the home button. And it says OK to delete all patterns, which is yes. And I'm going to come to scan. And I'm going to do a direct cut. So I'm going to select that one. I'm going to select the machine. It's in black and white, and I'm in black and white, so I'm just going to leave it on that, and I'm going to say go. And it's going to scan this mat and hopefully pick up these 6 flowers on this piece of white card. And I'm going to say OK. And I'm just going to try and zoom you in a little bit. And I'm going to bring the drag arrows down just to isolate this piece of white card. And it's selected all the flowers for me, but because I'm using my normal mat, it's also picking up other bits of stuff which I don't want. So I'm just going to drag it in a bit more. Now from this screen, if you go to this icon here that looks like two circles with two arrows and select that and wait for it to process, you can now click the plus button once, and that will put an outline around these flowers of 0.04 of an inch, which is about 1 milli. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to say OK again, and then this time I'm going to say cut. But it's picked up a few little bits, so I'm just going to see if I can isolate them a little bit more. Yeah, that's better. And OK, OK, and cut. There's still a stray bit on the screen there, but I'm not unduly bothered about that. And we'll set it to go. Okay, I'm just going to zoom you back out so you can see the mat hopefully. So here's the white piece of card with the 6 flowers. I'm just going to peel this off and hopefully they've cut out. And there are my 6 flowers. This mat's very sticky, so there are my 6 flowers with just a 1 millimeter border. Okay, so all as I did with those then was coloured them in and put them on the card. But I'm going to make the card again today, but with coloured card. So that's going to be the next process I'm going to show you. How do I get my mat so sticky? I re-sticky it with one of these. Which way up? A Zig 2-way glue pen. If you look on my YouTube channel, you'll find a recent video, I think it was called Blade and Mat Maintenance, and I covered how I do this with my mat. And I've also got a previous video on my channel, probably from last year or the year before, about mat maintenance, and I go into more depth. But that's what I use to re-stick my mat. You have to be very careful though, you have to use it sparingly because it does make your mat very sticky. So I'm just going to take all these off. In fact, I'm going to unload the mat. Okay, so now, if you've not got coloured pens or crayons or anything like that, but you want to get the same effect with coloured card, I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to come back to the home button and start again, just in case anybody missed the first part of the video. So I'm going to come into patterns, into the second option, into the option with the flower, go on to page 2, choose the flower, take the size down as small as it will go, say OK, OK, and set. And once I get it on the mat, I'm going to come back into the editing icons, come to the adjustment icon, take it down to 0.75 in width, and I'm going to say 6 again. OK. Then I'm going to go back no, sorry, OK and OK into the icon that allows you to set the orientation of your shapes. Choose this second one so they come in a line and say OK. And I'm going to do a background scan this time because I want to place each one of those flowers on each one of these cards. Okay, I'm going to try and zoom you in a little bit more. And I'm going to position each one of these flowers now onto each one of these pieces of coloured card. And one thing I would say about these pieces of coloured card here, I've got the tops roughly of all these pieces of card lined up from about 1 inch on my mat here. And I'll explain why when we get to the next stage. So I'm just going to go into the editing icon and zoom in just so that I can see that these flowers are on these bits of scrap card with enough room for them to be drawn and add the seam allowance. So they look all okay. So I'm going to say OK, take the blade out, put my black pen back in, say OK, OK, draw, and go. Okay, so they've all drawn now. I'm going to leave the mat exactly where it is. I'm not going to do anything, and I'm going to take the pen out, put the blade back in, say OK, go back, and I'm going to do home. OK to delete, scan, direct cut, from the machine, go. Does anybody have any questions while this is scanning, and I'll see if I can read them on the screen and answer you? Okay, so that's scanned. I'm going to say OK. Again, I'm going to isolate the pieces of card because I'm using my cutting mat, obviously, and it's old and worn and it's got all sorts of rubbish on it that I don't want picking up. I'm going to come back. I'm not so sure whether this blue one has picked up, but if not, we'll scan it again separately in a few minutes. It doesn't look as though this blue one's picking up for some reason, but we'll rectify that in a few minutes. So I'm going to come to the outline icon. I'm going to click it once to put a 0.04 seam allowance, which is 1 milli, and say OK, OK, and cut. Trying to turn it round so that you can see the screen and see the card. Okay, so it's cut that one. And it's cut the green one. So we'll put them all up here for now. It's cut the pink one. It didn't pick the blue one up for some reason, but I'm not too bothered because I'm going to rectify that hopefully in a minute. There's the green one. And there's the pink one. So I'm going to say, okay, back again, back again. Go back to direct cut from the machine. And scan this one again and see if it picks it up. And it has this time. Okay, so there are all the coloured pieces cut with a 1 milli seam allowance, which I can now stick on the card. Another option I could do, I could scan the flowers back and add a white seam allowance like I've done here. And if you can see the difference on the bottom one. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to do that. So I'm going to unload the mat. Let me think how to do this. I don't know whether to do it on white card again or... Let me think. No. Okay, we'll try it this way. So we'll put the shapes back on the mat. Go back to the home button, load this back in. I'm going to say scan, direct cut. Not done it this way before, so this is trial and error. I'm going to say OK. It's not picking them up, so I'm going to go home and say OK and unload the mat. So what I'm going to do for now, I'm just going to carry on with the card, but I was going to try something else, which is what I did with this one by adding an extra white board on it. So I'll show you that in a few minutes, but I'll just crack on with the card for now in case there's people waiting to go. So this is my piece of black card. I've already put a little bit of a white insert in it, and I want to put some dash lines around it like I did here. Now this one I did by hand, but there is a dashed line in the machine. So if you've got this machine, and you've got the dash line pattern, this is how you do it. So I'm going to put the card on the mat, and I'm doing it folded, so let's hope this works rather than opening it out in full. I'm going to load the mat. I'm going to come into the patterns, into the borders, and go to the last page, and there's a dash line here. I'm going to select that. Now this card I know the size of, and if I wanted to put a dash line 1/4 of an inch smaller along here, along the horizontal, my dash line needs to be 5.5. So I'm going to take the width up to 5.5 inches. And I'm going to say 2 because I'd want one at the top and one at the bottom, and say set. And then my 2 lines. And then I'm going to go back to add, back to the border, back to the last page. I'm going to rotate this time 90 degrees because I want 2 vertical lines now, and my vertical lines I think need to be about 3 3/4 inches high. So I'm going to take this down to 3.75 and say 2 and OK, and I've got 2 lines. Now I'm going to do a background scan again to scan this piece of card. I'm just going to come into the settings icon and take the background scan down to very pale because I've got a piece of black card and I couldn't see the lines. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to position these dash lines on this piece of card. I think I've done those too big. So I'll select one and delete it, and then I'll make the other one slightly smaller. Take it down to 3.5. And say 2. And then position these on here. And then I'm going to zoom in and move them. And when I think they look okay, I'm going to say OK, OK, OK again, and I'm going to draw them. This time I'm going to draw them with a white pen because I'm putting them on black card. So I'm using my universal pen holder. I'm going to use a white gel pen. If you want to know what pen this is, refer to the universal pen holder video I did about a month or so ago. I'm going to say draw, and hopefully I'm going to draw the dash lines on this piece of card. Now to save some time, the white layer I've already cut and I've put the dash lines on by hand, and I'm going to stick that on the card in a few minutes. Okay, so that's drawn. That's drawn the dash lines on my card. Okay. So it's just a case of assembling now. So I'm going to stick this piece of card on there, which I'll do very quickly. And then I've got all these coloured flowers that basically are just stuck on in a kind of a random shape like this. That's how I made the card. And then I wrote the greeting. Now, if you want to write the greeting with the machine, obviously you can, I could have put it on when I put the dash lines on, or I can scan it back in and do it now. But I want to show you how I did this one with the tiny pink outline of the card, the coloured card, and the white outline. So I'm going to show you how to do that quickly. So I need a piece of scrap card. Some scissors. So I'm going to put a piece of scrap card on this mat. Load the mat. Go to the home button. Find my flower again. Take the size down as small as it will go. I'll have a look for questions in a few minutes while this is doing this. Take it down to 0.75. Say OK, OK, and do a background scan so I can position it on this piece of pink card. Okay, I'm going to position it on the card. I'm going to say OK. I'll swap the pen back over to my black pen. Draw. Take the pen out. So without unloading the mat, I'm going to put the blade back in. I'm going to say OK, go home, OK to delete all patterns, and go to scan. Direct cut from the machine and go. I'm going to wait for it to process it. Try and zoom you in. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to drag the handles in just to isolate the piece of card. I'm going to come to the icon where we add an outline, and I'm going to make it 0.04, say OK, OK, and cut, and go. Okay, so that's cut. I'm going to go back to this screen. Now, I'm going to take this piece of pink card with the flower that's just cut off. But when I said to you before, it's positioned at about 1 inch on the mat. That's because I'm going to replace this pink flower now with a piece of white card and add another seam allowance. So that's why it's vital that you know roughly where you're laying out your coloured pieces of card. So I'm going to take this one off and position this without unloading the mat and just burnish it down. And then I'm going to come back to the offset icon, and I'm going to, instead of it being 0.04, which it was for this, I'm going to take it up 1 notch to 0.08, say OK, OK, and cut, and go. And because this piece of white card I placed over the position of where the pink one was, it's now cut me a piece of white card that this will layer onto, like that. So that's another way if you want to use coloured card, but you want a white border. Every time I do a live stream, our chicken cuckoo clock goes off. So if you want to add a white border onto coloured card, that's how you do it. So you draw your shape using the direct cut facility. Once it's drawn, you draw your shape, then you go back to the home button and don't unload your mat, and you use the direct cut and you scan it. Once it's scanned, you add a 0.04 outline, which gets you this. And then you click go back on the machine, don't unload your mat, take your coloured pieces off and replace your coloured pieces with white. Make sure that your white piece is bigger than your coloured pieces were, so you know you're going to cover the area. And then add a 0.08 outline, and that gets you that effect. So I hope that was helpful. So has anybody got any questions before I go? I just wanted to give you the two options. I wanted to show you how I made this one just using white card with a straight 1mm border and then coloured it in by hand. But I wanted to give you the option of being able to cut it in coloured card if you've not got colouring in pens or pencils. So are there any questions? Great technique, thank you. Your head's spinning, oh bless you. Your questions are above, sorry I can't see them. I have asked YouTube if there's any way that we can make the questions be bigger on screen, because they pop up and then they disappear. And when I'm trying to show you how to do things, I miss a lot of the questions. But as I've said in all of my previous live stream videos, this video will go up on my channel after this is finished, and I will come back and answer your questions. And someone's just asked me a question and it's popped up and gone again. So if you can ask me the question so I can see again, I'll try and answer it. If you're stamping and the scanner doesn't always find it, it could be that you've not stamped it crisply enough, or just move it on the mat, move the stamp on the mat and scan it through again. If that doesn't work, when you go into your settings, when you go to home and you're doing a scan, it doesn't matter which one you're doing, go into the wrench and change it to the colour instead of black and white. Sometimes the colour option, even if you're stamping in black on white, sometimes the colour option picks up better than the black and white. Okay, so I hope that's answered that question. Anything else? So if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up for me. As I say, don't forget to leave me comments. Oh, you're welcome, Audrey, I think that was. Thank you so much. Leave me comments under the video when it goes up. It'll be up probably in about 5 or 10 minutes after it's processed. Leave me comments and I will try and answer them. Nigel, thank you. Jan, thank you very much. Lynn, yeah, thank you. Jackie, yes, thank you so much. That's lovely. Glad you were all here. And hope you liked the video. Any other questions? Oh, it's okay, don't worry, you found out where to type now. Well, you'll know for next time. Someone said, however, can you link the machines, or is it best to keep them separate? You've got 2 machines and you've got 2 accounts. I thought you were able to use multiple machines in ScanNCut Canvas, maybe try it. Maybe try it on one of your accounts and see. I thought you could because Canvas is online, so I'm not sure. It should work. It should be able to send you designs to. Don't know though, maybe. Actually, if you're doing it Wi-Fi, maybe it won't. If you're doing it manually with a USB stick, I would think you'd be able to have one account and 2 machines. Anything else? Don't forget to subscribe if you don't already do so. Someone's just put Wi-Fi on the screen. Does that mean you don't know what the Wi-Fi is? No, I don't buy the CDs. Jackie, I think it is, has just asked me, do I have the CDs? I don't have the CDs. I don't buy them. The CDs, from what I think I know, the format is different. So you can't take a file from the CD into Canvas. You've got to literally use them with the machine. So you can't put them in Canvas and, you know, tinker about with them or adjust them or make other things from them, as far as I'm aware. Hope that helps. Any other questions? Just having a little drink. Okay, Jackie, great. Thank you. Glad that helped. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one there. And I'm going to put that one there just to show you the difference. It would help if you could see it, wouldn't it? There you go. So they're the 2 different cards. One cut in white, coloured in. One cut in coloured card. And another option, cut in coloured card with a white. I'll put that one there with a white background. Okay, so if that's all the questions for now, I'm going to go because I've actually been on for over 40 minutes. As I say, this will go up on my channel. You'll be able to leave me comments and I will answer your questions. Bye.